and the list goes on. The recent one that was introduced in with effect from 10th October 24 that everybody should be aware of is lease is on rented properties, on commercial rented properties. So if you have your showroom or shop or your office at a rented premises and your landlord is not charging GST, then you are required to pay GST on that particular transaction on reverse charge mechanism with effect from 10th October. Now, there are certain goods like cashew nuts, then tendu leaves, tobacco leaves, which again attract reverse charge mechanism. So I have given the list. While the list is not complete, but these are most of them that you should be aware of and which you will face on a day-to-day basis. All right. So then the next concept that we should be hitting before we begin configuring Tally or seeing how transactions are entered in Tally is something called as block credits. Now, what are block credits? Earlier, we had discussed that GST as a rule, as a law, is based on the fundamental principles of value added taxes. That means at each level of the transaction, GST will be levied, and on the value that is being added on that particular good, GST would be payable. Now, for this rule to work, it needs to have seamless input tax credit. That means for every purchase that I make and I pay GST for, I should be getting an input tax credit. When I am selling those goods, I should be able to knock it off with the GST that I am collecting from my customer. So now this is the general rule that you will get input tax credit on goods, services, capital goods that you purchase, and you will be eligible for a knockoff with your output supply. However, this general rule has certain exceptions where certain credits that you pay for, you will not be eligible for a credit in your monthly returns. Now, what are those transactions? Now, some of those transactions are motor vehicles, aircrafts, vessels, subject to certain exceptions. Then repairs and maintenance costs that you incur on those motor vehicles, aircrafts, etc. Food, beverages, catering, beauty treatments, construction of immovable property, services received from a composition dealer, services or goods that are purchased for personal consumption of the owner, or goods or services which are obtained for CSR activities. Now, while these are all important ones, we have seen in many scenarios people tend to ignore the last one. Now, what is the last one? There are scenarios where goods are stolen, goods are lost in transit, or they are destroyed due to fire, floods. In those scenarios also, you will not be able to claim input tax credit. So one should be very careful where as soon as you see a trigger of insurance claim, there could be a chance where input tax credit could be restricted. So this is very important. Now, while we have covered technical concepts, can the participants of this event tell me what do you think makes Tally one of the most sought after software for accounting and GST compliances? Jyoti, can I get some answers?
Yes, I believe the partners or faculties or also who have joined with us should also participate and share like these answers. As we get after even on a previous question, no, there were many answers which came little late. So I think they're taking time to type and all. So please type it fast, share your answers. How Tally is so exclusive.
What is Tally's key USP which makes it viable than any other software.
And for this, responses should be huge. And we have audience from YouTube also. So people who have joined or who are watching on YouTube can type there in chat also. So responses from there is also considered. इतना टाइम नहीं लगना चाहिए guys, fast. Actually, those who are trying to raise your hands, because this is a webcast which is also being streamed live in YouTube, you will not be able to unmute yourself and say. So please type it. Okay, we have started getting answer. It is easy to operate. One is saying tele is GSP. Okay. But one is saying connected service, simple and flexible. Invoicing, accounting, inventory management, user management, and multiple things. Okay.
So I'll come back to where I'm trying to get to. See, what I'm
Yes.
trying to get to is the fact that Tally is one amongst those softwares that is exceptionally keyboard friendly. See, I think we have to realize that as accountants, people spend a lot of time on Tally accounting software. Maybe there are scenarios where people spend the entire day on Tally accounting software. Now, when you do that, you're expected to be exceptionally efficient in doing your work. We've seen so many scenarios at our client's place where, billing is to be done at a very fast pace. People expect accountants to do their job at quickly, and where the owners come up and say, can you tell me what this person's due is? आज मेरे को बताना ही है, and you have to come up with the answer because I need it. So a lot of time is spent. Now, in that entire time that is being spent, Tally has one of the most amazing factors where you can control the entire software by just using your keyboard. You do not have to reach out to the mouse every time and try to click at different parts of the software to make it work. Now, when that is there, because as and when users use Tally accounting software, their grip on the keyboard becomes better over a period of time and they're able to perform faster. Now, what helps perform faster is some of the shortcuts that Tally provides. And Tally has a very unique way of displaying those shortcuts. It's given in bold and you're easily able to identify those shortcuts. Now, some of the shortcuts that we will discuss today is with respect to selecting vouchers and voucher related shortcuts, because at the end of the day we are looking at compliances from GST, so we will look at configuring Tally as well as uh, entering data and filing the return. So some of the voucher shortcuts that one should know as a student or as someone who uses Tally on a frequent basis is F8, F9, F7. Now, what are these three? So as soon as you go to a particular voucher, you will be able to select the other voucher type by using these shortcuts. So as soon as I go to a voucher and select F8, sales voucher will open. If I press F9, purchase voucher will open. If I press F7, journals will open. Now, each of these vouchers have their specific functions, and it's important for us to know each of those functions. Now, sales, as the name represents, it is for accounting sales invoices, whether be it for goods or be it for services. When you enter these vouchers, you have to be very careful because this is a fundamental document that is issued from any organization and carries a lot of importance. The next one is purchase, where you record items in which you trade or items in which you use for your operating activities. That could be for procuring goods, that could be for operational purposes, and also recording input tax credit correctly, we will use purchase voucher. Now, journal voucher is a voucher that is more or less, I would call a catch-all voucher, wherein this is a voucher where if no other transaction voucher can be used, then you use journal. Now, what are some of the examples that we can look at? We pass depreciation entries through journals, provision entries through journals, rounding of small differences through journals. Next, we'll look at what is a contra voucher. Now, contra voucher is something specific which Tally uses. Now, it is a voucher where transactions between two banks or transaction between cash and bank is recorded. So, which will include transactions like deposits, withdrawals, or fund transfer between two banks. Payment voucher, like payment and receipt voucher, like the name suggests, are for receiving and making payments. The last two is something that I want to stress on. It's called insert voucher and duplicate voucher. See on the right side of the screen, you will be able to see the position where each of these shortcuts are available and where you can see them. But let's look at insert voucher in specific. Insert voucher is, is a shortcut that is introduced to ensure you can pass an entry between two already existing vouchers. Duplicate voucher is where you can replicate a particular entry that is already done. All right. So I think before we move forward, there should be a demo for all of these for both of these for our audience to know. So I'll just show you what can be done. So I'm just opening a trial tally date that I had created. So what I will do is from the gateway of Tally, like I said, Tally has a unique way of showing what is applicable, what is not applicable, or showing the shortcuts. Like for example, if I have to create, then I have to select C. So it's in bold and it's in a different color. So now let's look at voucher related shortcuts. For someone who is new to Tally, who is still learning, you can find all of those shortcuts listed on the right side as well as at the bottom. All right. Now, the list that I gave in my presentation is also visible here. F4, receipts, journals, sales, purchase. Now, under F10, Tally has brought in every other type of voucher that you should be knowing, like a credit note, a debit note, a stock journal. All of these are available. If you press F10, you will be able to view all of these things. All right. So now, there are other shortcuts that are available. Now, because I have very little time and I will not be able to discuss it, what I've done is I've put in a QR code over here. As soon as you scan this QR code, you will land on a page where all shortcuts that are available in Tally have been listed, and you can go through them to ensure that your journey as users of Tally becomes very smooth. Alright, now that we have completed understanding some of the fundamental principles that you should know for GST and its configurations, let's move into configurations and see how we can ensure that by doing particular steps correctly, we will have a seamless experience of filing returns at the end of every period. So first step of configuration is configuring GST at the company level and setting certain global standards so that your Tally functions very smoothly. So the first step is company configuration. So in case you're not able to view the pictures on the right side that I've put, don't worry, we will do all of these steps and then you will be able to see them. So you don't have to think that the picture is a little too small and you're not able to see. So the first step in configuring Tally at the group level begins as soon as you create a new company. Once a new company is created, Tally by default will show you a pop-up where certain features are mandatorily required to ensure the smooth running of that accounting company. So the first step is taxation. If you go to the right side, you will be able to see that, and it will say enable goods and services tax, set alter company rate and other details. Now in this option, you will be able to set many things. Amongst the things, I want to discuss two things in specific. One is setting up applicability of e-way bill. Second is setting up applicability of e-invoicing. Now, what is an e-way bill? An e-way bill is a document that, apart from your valid tax invoice, is needed at the time of movement of goods, along with certain additional details like from where the goods are moving, to which place it is moving, who is moving the goods, and in what vehicle or in what form of transport is are those goods moving. So you will have to disclose things like vehicle number, vehicle make, then the distance that is there from the supply to the buyer's place. All of those details have to be uploaded. Now, the next thing is an e-invoice. An e-invoice, while the name suggests that it is generating an invoice from the GST portal, that's not what it is. It is simply sending certain set of information from your system to the GSTIN, where it will accept those details and give you a specific acknowledgement that they have received this information on real-time basis, and you have to display that with an IRN, which is a 64-digit number, and a specific QR code that is provided by the website, wherein you can scan that and get critical information about a particular invoice. So once we do that, I want to ask you two things. One, what is the applicability of e-way bill? I'll come to the second one once I get the answer to this. So first question is, what is the applicability of e-way bill and when is it required to issue an e-way bill?
So you can use your keyboard a little faster, because I believe that would be a sentence that you would have to type and we would get answers accordingly. I would also request guys who are using, who are viewing it on YouTube, you can type it on YouTube chat also.
So if I have to repeat my question, what is the value beyond which you have to issue an e-way bill?
Okay, it is interstate transaction is more than 50,000. Invoice value is more than 50,000. Invoice value 50,000 above, and transporting goods. Invoicing amount should be 50,000 or above. So I guess 50,000 is the main word which everybody is using here.
Great. So then I think we have a very informed audience. So one pat on everyone's back. So the next question that I have for you is a little more tricky. The slabs or the quantum has changed multiple times. To whom is e-invoicing applicable? So किस किस बिजनेस ओनर या बिजनेस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को ई इनवॉइस करने की जरूरत है?
Okay, so we have answers. E-bill is used to transport goods to suppliers, to buyers, good worth more 50,000. This was,
I think that's the e-way bill answer.
Yes. State-wise, there should limit of different of for e-way bills. More than 5 crore, 5 crore turnover.
Okay.
I'm just reading out these statements that they are putting in the chat. I'm not trying to make the entire sentence out of a word. Okay, so these are the kind of responses that we are getting. Anybody else was still trying to type? Invoices generally purchase one, anyone who have GST number. So mixed response, I guess.
Okay. So the answer is every organization having an annual aggregate turnover of more than 5 crores in any previous financial year. All right. So it is 5 crores. People who have said 5 crores, you're absolutely right. It is 5 crores. This this limit started with 100 crores, came down multiple times, and today stands at 5 crores. So every organization having 5 crores or above turnover in any of their previous financial years is required to issue an e-invoice. Now, what all transactions are covered under e-invoice? It's B2B transactions, export, and certain other set of transactions which the government is prescribed. I would like to concentrate, or I would want you to know two particular things: B2B sales and export invoices. All right. So then, before we move forward, let's look at how the configuration portion will work. So what I will do is I will create a new company at this point. So I will make it fast. So create a company. I will call it ABC Company. I will call the state of Karnataka because I am from there. Right? And let's proceed. I will not give you any other information. You can figure that out. Now, once that I have created a company, like I said, as soon as a company is created, a pop-up screen will come. Once this pop-up screen comes, if you can see this is where GST related information is displayed. All right, so that's taxation. So let's enable the taxation. So once you enable the transaction, these are certain set of questions that Tally will ask you to ensure a smooth set of configurations. Right. So the first one, the state where it is registered, Karnataka, regular, then periodicity, then the GSTIN. So I'll put a GSTIN. All right, monthly. I'll not go with the username password. I will say e-invoicing is applicable from 1/4/24. Place where the billing will happen from is Bangalore. E-way bill applicable, yes. Interstate applicable. Once I do that, my basic configuration is all done. So next we are looking at configuring the GSTIN, GST rates, HSN codes, and the nature of transactions. So the basic that one should know is that this configuration can be done at multiple levels. It can be done at the company level, it can be done at the group level, it can be done at a ledger level, transaction level, stock level, or at the group stock level. Now, in this entire possibility, there could be a chance where there could be conflicting configurations that you come up with. So you should understand there is a hierarchy that follows. So if I configure something at a ledger level and that is conflicting with any other level, group level or company level, then the setting at the ledger level will prevail. So in case of a conflict between setting at ledger level and setting at group level or company level, my ledger level will prevail. So this hierarchy you should keep in mind so that you're aware from where Tally is picking it up, picking rate HSN related details. I will also show you where you can check this details is coming from. All right. So let's quickly move to Tally and let's set up GSTIN rates. So HSN rates, if you want to specify it here, you can specify it. I would not want to specify it here. I would want to specify it at each ledger level because it makes life a lot more easier. Right. So I will move forward. Then the next stage that they're asking for is e-way applicability. Like everyone said, it is 50,000, 50,000. So it is already fed in by Tally. You just have to accept it. In case there is a change, certain states have a different value prescribed. In that scenario, you can change this number. And then HSN code related, it'll ask you how many HSNs do you want to have in your Tally for it to be acceptable. We will say 8 and proceed. Right, so we have done configuration at company level. Now let's look at configuration at group level. So what I will do is I will create a group. All I have to do is go to create masters. I will select group and I will create a group. Let's create a group called sales at 5%. So I will, in my example, I will consider all my sales are taxable at 5% and I will move forward. Sales account. Now at this group, I have an option to define my GST applicability and proceed forward. So what I will do is I will define it over here, or I can also define it at the ledger level. I would be very comfortable to define it at the ledger level. So I will proceed as is. I will just say okay and proceed forward. Now that I have created a sales group, I will also create a ledger. Now here I will say local sales at 5%. Now, the nomenclature that we use is very important. Every organization has their own way of deciding the nomenclature for each ledger. I would be comfortable in a scenario where I specifically give what rate and whether it is local or interstate and the nature of the transaction. So local sales at 5%. This is under sales 5%. And now if you see, I have gotten the option to configure GST over here. So I will say GST applicable and I will say not as per company, but I would want to specify things. So I will specify, let's take HSN as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 because I had said 8 digits is compulsory. Then I will define the rate over here and I will say taxable. There is another feature that Tally has. Tally gives you two options. Option number one, where you let Tally decide whether a particular transaction is local or interstate, or you can also decide for Tally and say every transaction in this particular ledger will always be local. Now, how do you enable that? You press F12 and you select the option nature of transaction over here and you say yes. So here by default it will say system inferred, which means Tally will decide whether or not it is local, interstate, SEZ sale, etc. So in my case I would want to define it, so I will define it. I will define the rate. I will say goods. This is the basic configuration. Now if you have gotten this right, then most of your transaction recording will be very smooth. There are two other ledgers that I would want to create. One is CGST output. I would call it at 2.5%. This is under duties and taxes because these are GST that I will be levying on my sales transactions. Since this is central tax, I will define it as central tax. You can choose to define the percentage here. Even if you don't choose to define it here, it will continue to take it as 5% depending on the sales head that you choose. All right. So I will proceed. I will do SGST output at 2.5%. Duties and taxes, GST. This is SGST or UGST. I will not define the rate here and I will move forward. So we have done all basic configuration that is needed. So once we have defined nature, we have defined rates, we can proceed with the next level, that is recording a particular transaction. All right. So some of you who would want to know the shortcuts or how to reach at that particular level of configuration, I have colored it in a separate color and given it to you so you can look at them, and wherever shortcuts are defined I have given that in a different color so you can always refer back to this. So the next one, ledger creation configuration, we are done. The next one is data entry. Now that we have learned some of the basic configuration and configuration that has to be done by any accountant to ensure a smooth GST compliance, we will now move to data entry. Now, the most important voucher data entry that is there is sales. Now, can the audience tell me some of the some of the disclosures that are required in a particular GST invoice to ensure you're compliant with GST? Jyoti, I think this is one of the last questions that I have.
Yes, of course. And then I guess there would be questions from the audiences.
Yes.
Okay, so guys, please do a little fast typing. This is your typing test also, because most of the time what happens, no, they are thinking that should I reply or not. Then they type it, and by the time we collect responses, it's just few of them are on the top, and then till later on they are typing. Okay, so yes. So Amit sir, thank you so much. So first response has come from Amit sir, which is tax invoice, GST number of buyers and sellers. Then Jyoti is saying GST IN of customers. Amit sir again saying HSN code, GST rate. Another Saini Kumar is saying HSN code, SAC code. And then GST rate summary, Jyoti is again saying address, state, place of supply, GST in for customers. Bhagyashri is saying supplier invoice number, HSN number, bill, date, GST numbers of both
Correct.
the
I think
parties.
most of them have gotten the answer. So let's move to the thing that I wanted to see. See, what I want to tell is that, see, GST as a law has not prescribed a format in which an invoice will be issued, but it has specified what details are mandatory to be disclosed in a specific invoice to make it a valid tax invoice. Now, some of them are like all the audiences pointed out: name, address, GSTIN, invoice number. What you should know is that the invoice number can be a maximum of 16 characters and can include only two specific special characters, which I have disclosed in the PPT. The other thing that is there is that you should, many a times we come across a scenario where place of supply is not disclosed. So you should ensure place of supply is also disclosed, and you should be providing a space for signing for both the customer as well as the supplier. Now, what you should understand is that if all of these disclosures are not correct and you continue to issue an invoice, there is a chance that you're attracting penalty and you're putting your organization at risk, right? All right. So then there are multiple other transactions which I think we'll go one by one. Purchases, expenses, purchase of fixed assets, and block credit expenses. Recording all of these transactions is very important, and Tally has a specific method in which each of these transactions are recorded. We should pay specific attention to all of these things. Once we do this correct, we have reached a point where your fundamentals to get to GST compliances are put in together, and you will have a seamless experience to file your returns. Jyoti, since we have only 10 more minutes left, we will move to the questions.
Perfect. So I guess because somebody heard, we already heard that we'll be taking questions. So one question is already there in the chat box. Meanwhile, I would also request others also, if you have some queries or questions, because it was a lot of information today in the session. So wherever you felt there was a doubt or you need any special, advice on some topic, so please put your questions in the chat box. Whereas I'll take the first question, which is from Bachwala Srinivas, which is how to process multi rates of GST at a time, sir.
I'll give you an example. You know what? Let's do it. So I'll create another one called, I'll call it local sales at 12%. I'll do it quickly for all of you so that you can look at it. Sales account, GST is applicable, specify here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we'll proceed. I'll define it over here: taxable, local sales taxable, and 12%, right? So what I will do now is go to the voucher, say pass a sales entry. I will say invoice number 1 dated first, cash sales. Sales ledger, I will enable sales as an accounting invoice, right? And I will say sales at 12%, say 100 rupees, and local sales at 5%, say 200 rupees. All right, CGST output 2.5%. Now what I will do is I will not call it 2.5%, I will call it CGST output. SGST, I will again call it SGST output. So if you see, let's get my calculator out. So when I do this, it's 100. So it's 12 plus 10, which is 22 rupees. If you see, my GST is correctly calculating at 22 rupees. So that is 100 into 0.12 and 200 into zero point 0.5, which is 10. So then we get our answer at 22 rupees. So this is how multi-GST and multi-rate is calculated. I hope I'm clear and I'm not being too fast on getting this answer.
No, this was perfect, perfect. I myself also understood the concept here, I guess. So yes, please, audience, your questions, please put your questions. We still have some time left. If you have any questions, please put in the chat box and question would be answered. Uh, let's not waste time, guys. If you have questions, please put in here fast, because I believe, of course, the session was thoroughly explained. There must not be something which was unexplained or needs more assistance. Okay. There is one question from Aradhya Shukla, which is requesting, sir, please repeat FCM and RCM. If we can.
I'll take you through that again. All right, so let's go back to the slides. All right, so this is a pictorial representation of how the transaction will happen. So let me just help you by pointing things out. All right, can you see the pointer, Jyoti?
Yes.
All right. All right, so we are in a situation. Let's assume forward charge mechanism. Let's say you are a customer and you are going to buy a particular laptop at say 1 lakh rupees. So in a typical scenario, the supplier would say the cost of the laptop is 1 lakh plus GST. Let's assume it is at 18%. So he will say, please pay 1 lakh 18,000. So in that scenario, what the supplier will do is collect 1 lakh 18,000 from you and deposit the 18,000 with the government and say, I have collected from my customer and given it to the government. That is forward charge mechanism. This is a typical transaction where you see this happening on a daily basis. Now, what is different is under reverse charge mechanism. Let's say I am an advocate and you come to me for certain professional advice. Now, in that, I would tell you as an advocate that my charges for this particular transaction is 1 lakh rupees. Please pay me 1 lakh rupees. So you as a customer pay me 1 lakh rupees, but the government says this transaction has not suffered GST. While I will not collect GST from the law firm, I will collect GST from you as a customer who will then have to pay it to the government. So in the first scenario, the supplier collects 18,000 from the customer and pays it to the government. In the second scenario, the supplier does not collect GST, but the customer pays GST directly to the government on behalf of the supplier. Now, why was this transaction brought in? There are certain categories of transaction or people who, let's assume a GTA. There is a chance that most of them do not have access to information or do not have access to files basic returns like GST and all of that. So in the parliament's wisdom, they thought, right, that you know some of these players are unorganized and it could be very difficult to expect them to pay taxes. So they said these set of transactions, or there could be many other reasons. I'm just assuming this to be one amongst the many reasons. They said, no, no, we will not collect GST from the supplier. We will collect GST from the recipient because he is from the organized sector and he is able to make the payment to the government. So in that way, government is collecting taxes from two different people, but of the same amount. Okay, Jyoti, next question. I hope I've cleared this.
Yes, yes, of course, wonderfully. I guess Jyoti is asking on the same topic, so I'm taking her question first. She's asking, can we claim ITC on RCM inward supply?
General rule, yes, unless these RCM is paid towards exempted goods, you can go ahead and claim input on these RCM services.
So, uh, please fasten your seat belt because there are multiple questions now. I'll take one by one. One is from Kashipuram Lokesh, who's asking, what is GSTIN?
So GSTIN is Goods and Services Tax Identification Number. So that is a number that you get from the government for when you apply for a GST registration.
Mhm. So, as the audience is, most of the students also are like among the audience. So, there is a question from a student, I believe, that, sir, what kind of questions are asked in the interviews regarding GST?
Okay, a whole lot. Some of the
Yes.
questions that are asked is what I've covered, whether you're aware of something called as FCM, RCM, what transactions are covered under RCM, what are block credits. Some of them refer to it from the section where they say what are credits blocked under section 17(5), so which is nothing but block credits. Or they could ask you questions where you cannot claim input tax credit, or how do you pass certain set of entries. They could ask you simple journal entries when you are going for an interview. And some of the basic questions, I think Tally has made accounting very simple. So sometimes accountants tend to forget how they were taught accounting entries when they were in college, the traditional book writing process. But if you configure Tally correctly, you will be able to do that as well.
So, thank you for replying to the question because this must be from many students, but maybe asked by one. So, another question from Bhagyashri Patil. She's saying this is a long statement. When I generate, when I generated bill, including exempted goods as well as taxable goods, it will be captured in outward supplies, which is taxable. Under GST 9 annual computation report, why the breakup of the exempted amount is not displayed in the outward supplies, which is not taxable? Uh,
Okay, so
should I
this,
repeat?
I think they're talking about where a transaction is supposed to be disclosed in the annual return. So
Mhm.
So you will have that transaction disclosed in the second table, which if I am not wrong is table 5, where you will disclose exempted transactions. That is where you will disclose that.
Okay. So, now, V. Sai Kumar is saying, no query, sir. And thank you so much for spending your valuable time and efforts. Got a wonderful experience by amazing lecture today. So these are the ongoing feedbacks I'm sharing because I feel the session was so good that there is no such big questions, but yes, very good comments. One is saying Sunny Kumar, what is ISD in GST and advantages and disadvantages of the same?
Okay, so ISD is a concept that you will bring in where you have multiple GST registrations. It's called input service distributor. So, wherein there are certain expenses that are common expenses for the group as a whole, for a company as a whole, which has multiple registrations in India. In that scenario, one of the examples could be audit fees, where a statutory audit is done for a company as a whole, but that input on the audit fee is to be absorbed by all registrations in a specified manner that is defined. The process of splitting that GST is defined specifically under the GST Act. So it is this particular registration that receives these invoices and then divides it amongst all the registrations of the company.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for explaining all the questions very, patiently, of course. So, meanwhile, I have a poll question for all the audience who's there with us. Please, it is there in front of your screens. This question is for you all, and you can also put your feedbacks and suggestions in the chat box. So, as we have already reached to the time limit, we would not be able to extend it much further. So if you have any questions, you can put that in the chat box. We will try to get answers from sir and would be able to deliver it to you. Meanwhile, your feedback on this poll question would be really helpful for us. It would be good to know how was today's session and how you find it, how beneficial it was for you. So meanwhile, Pratik sir, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and the audience, because meanwhile I've also got some WhatsApp responses from the partners saying thank you for this wonderful session. They have really found the session beneficial for them. And even from this poll responses, I'm feeling that yes, of course, the session was really wonderful today. You explained each and every point so patiently, so calmly, and so beautifully that it really entered in all our heads, and we know all the differences and all the good points about the session today. So it was a wonderful session, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for taking out your time, valuable time, of course, because you hardly get time. So for sharing it with us, all of us.
Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Tally, for having me.
Mhm. So thank you, audience, for joining in us with us. It was a very nice participation from the audience that really also made the session live enough. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So,
So good evening, guys. Bye. Take care.